Hey peeps, hope you're okay. This is going to be my review of Season 1, Episode 22 of the X-Files. It is called Born Again. So before I get into the episode, I just want to thank Becca for providing the thumbnail for this video. I'm sure you all agree it's very good, very eye-catching. So thanks once again, Becca, and this video goes out to you. So we return to the telekinesis territory in this episode, the area which was previously explored much earlier in the season in Shadows. And the episode's written by Howard Gordon and Alex Genser, and I certainly know that name. I'm pretty sure he was involved in The West Wing, and I've seen his name pop up on a few other shows over the years. So credible sort of writer, but I mention the writers partly because Howard Gordon, despite co-penning this episode, was not a fan at all. He really didn't like it, and the main reason given was because he was down on just how similar it was to Shadows, and maybe even more notable, David Duchovny really didn't like this episode. He publicly detested it, so that's worth noting. The episode drew about 13.7 million viewers on the classic old Nelson ratings, as reliable as they are, which was the highest rated episode so far in the season. I think certainly as the season went on and you got a bit more people hearing about the show, then the numbers did grow throughout the season. But about 13.7. And the plot of the episode is that, as I said, it goes back to telekinesis, but this time the sort of suspect and the intrigue is through this young gal, Michelle, who mysteriously ends up in Buffalo, New York. She's discovered in an alleyway by the detective Sharon, or the cop Sharon, who a lot of people know because she's played by Maggie Wheeler of Friends fame, and the girl in question is interviewed by a douchebag cop in the precinct, and moments later said douchebag cop is sent flying through the window, making it clear that we are again in telekinesis areas. And Mulder and Scully, through some digging, finds out that the girl has a dark past which involves, brutally attacking creepy-looking dolls in therapy session, and they link this to a crime where an ex-cop was brutally murdered by the Japanese triad, and we end up with basically a reincarnation story through the telekinesis ability of this young girl. And this is a decent episode. I think I prefer it to Shadows. It's a very watchable episode. I got through it quite easily. I think it's a solid overall episode. The casting is good. The supporting cast, I enjoyed Maggie Wheeler as Sharon. I enjoyed a lot of her scenes. I thought she was a very likable, grounded character, and there's some good supporting parts. I recognise the actress playing the wife of this ex-cop, who it turns out knows a little bit more, or sorry, a current cop who's the ex-partner of the cop who's killed and is linked to this whole plot. And I recognise that actress as well. I've seen her in a fair bit. So it was quite well cast, good supporting roles. I think the atmosphere and the look of like downtown Buffalo, New York was really good. I enjoyed how moody the streets sort of looked. And it definitely digs into some interesting ideas. There's sort of, it casually approaches, the idea of sexism on the police force and in the workplace. And although it might have gone a bit off topic, I actually wouldn't have minded a bit more on that. And I think there's a decent atmosphere as well at times. There's a couple of quite suspenseful scenes. I think the problem is that in the end, the episode just ends up being a little bit too gimmicky, a little too much of a cliche of this kind of plot, this telekinesis style plot, supernatural, and it just feels a bit old hat, been there, done that TV sort of science fiction. And overall, I think it's when you find out the reveal and you find out what the answer is, and you get this whole plot with like this gang and just kind of seedy sort of underhanded cops getting into dodgy dealings again. That stuff is just kind of boring and just sort of falls flat, and the villains of the episode are very like one note. And there's also just cheesy little moments like the stuff with the dolls and kind of silly dialogue. Unfortunately, the actors aren't really given enough to do, because the young girl playing Michelle, I thought was really a solid actress, for her age and everything. But after the initial opening scene, she's not really given anything else to do, and it just feels like they've gone to the well of the spooky, weird sort of kid with kind of emotional issues one too many times. Also, I feel like Wheeler as Sharon was wasted. She wasn't in the episode enough. As I said, I did like her. I like some of the banter in that opening scenes with the other cops, and I just think she could have been given more to do. I thought she was a likable character, a good presence, and she was kind of wasted, like a lot of people in this episode. I think in the end you do get that when it gets to the telekinesis scenes, the big ones, which they sort of do build, and I think overall there is more intrigue to the episode, just because one touch I did like was the whole thing with the origami, the fact that this girl who's like only like 8 or something mysteriously knows origami, and the way they link that, the intrigue of that. So moments like that were nice, but when you get to the telekinesis plot, that and those moments, it is ridiculously silly. It looks very sort of phony and just over the top. That there's a ridiculous scene, which is probably one of the weakest scenes I've ever seen in the X Files, where someone else who's linked to this whole case ends up being killed basically by being dragged on the bus, by his tie, really, and it just looks so fake. There's like this delay in the bus starting to drag him off, and it looks ridiculous, folks. And then the big sort of end kind of action set piece scene looks very sort of hokey, very sort of melodramatic. And I think it's the problem telekinesis storylines have, that unless you can do it particularly well with the special effects and the action, it does come off as looking very sort of hokey. And obviously on a television budget, and this at the time was quite a small budget for this show, it's very hard to do that convincingly. Overall, maybe I'm just not that into the gimmick. It just stands out too much as a gimmick, and it was obviously a double whammy. The fact that you had what was a pretty lame reveal, like the whole answer with the mafia and their involvement with the cops, and that sort of feels very cliched and just been there, done that, and kind of boring. So it's sort of half a good episode, and I think I would happily watch it again, but it felt like a bit of a wasted opportunity, like the episode was kind of disposable. So that's my thoughts on Born Again. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Let me know if you agree or disagree with my thoughts. Episode rating wise, I'll give it a 6 out of 10. It was certainly solid, and I've seen much worse. You could skip it if you're watching through the season, and you wouldn't lose much. One thing before I forget, actually, which I did like, is that there is a mention of the Tombs case, which I like, because when Mulder and Scully first meet Sharon, they ask her, "How did you hear about us?" and she says, "Through the Tombs case." I like then they refer back to that case, which is clearly up to this point probably the X-Files' biggest case. Just a shame that halfway through the episode it sort of takes a nosedive. But that's my thoughts. As I said, I'm born again. And I just have a couple more episodes to do now. Coming up next time will be Ronald, so I'll have that out pretty quick. And actually, I know I haven't updated my list in a while, so I'll do that next time out. But thanks for listening, and I'll see you guys again soon. Goodbye.